Welcome to Podtendo's Final Fantasy VIII Retrospective. We're going to discuss why this game is so polarizing within the community. Listen as we deep dive through the thematical elements and talk about the plot. Enjoy. Hey guys, welcome back to the Final Fantasy VIII Retrospective. You just heard that. I'm Mick, and I'm joined by my lovely, talented co-host,
Tyson.
Cool stuff. So we got through the first one. It was released. We heard it. I feel like... was the intro song, did you hear it? Do I have to redo it? Should I redo it for this part?
I didn't listen. It just launched when we were recording this. So.
Oh, I see. All right. Well, it sounded okay on my headphones. It sounded worse when it was coming out of the crappy speakers on my phone. So we'll leave it, I suppose. And you don't want to have to ever redo your work, so...
Yeah. No one likes double checking their work.
No. And I always find that most, our podcast sounds fine on headphones, but when it's, through the speakers of my car or, through the speakers of my phone, I'm always questionable. Maybe it's the speakers in my car and my phone?
Or maybe your headphones are not the best, and they're compressed, but...
I don't know, something like that. Anyway, so this is it. So we're on to part 2. So we got through disc 1, we're on to disc 2 today. We do have a couple things to do up front before we get into this game proper. We're going to look at development details, we're going to look at some controls, and that's it.
Yeah, I think we are having an interesting ride with this game. So it'd be interesting to see how it got developed and where it came from.
And just re-listening to our podcast and talking through it for the first time, we should have started with this. I think this does clarify some of the things that happened, right? And should have started with development details. Having them in the second part was an error on my part, so I apologize, and we'll get through it. So, developed by Square. There was 8.6 million copies of this released in the world. It's fine. Now, it was released February 1st, or 11th. Wow, that took a while to say. 1999. How long to beat has this game at? 40 hours! That's too long. Price at release was $59.99. If you factor in inflation, that's $92.42 today. On eBay, you can get a copy for about $25, upwards of almost $2,800 for a graded copy. Don't buy it. It's on $5 on the PS1 original, or $25 for the remastered, which is probably the version you should play.
Yeah, and if you find it on sale for let's say 50% off, reasonable. Yeah,
grab it. So it's available on the PS1, PS3, Vita, PS4, on the PSN, I believe. Why did I say that? PS4, or Xbox One, and Switch for the remastered. Gotcha. That's fun.
Yeah.
All right. So development details. Let's look at development details, and then I think clarifies. We weren't feeling great about this game. It was kind of... we get the plot twist on this one, so that's kind of exciting. So development details of this fun game. So development began in 1997 during the English translation of Final Fantasy VII. Okay, all right. The main series producer left to work on Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within. Poor guy. The game, Triple Triad, was conceived of and implemented by programmer Yasui. This was due to the trading card game being popular in Japan. It would hold players' attentions for a longer period of time without cutscenes, and he begged for the inclusion of the ability to transform cards into items. The game cost 3 billion yen, or 3 million US, and that's about $47 million in 2020 monies. The staff consisted of about 180 people. This was the first game where direct connection between Japan and North America team worked directly on the project together. They wanted a cast of characters to look like normal people. They used motion capture technology and created about 80 minutes of CGI cutscenes compared to Final Fantasy VII. Or more minutes. Really? They had 80 minutes of... I guess there are lots of cutscenes. I don't think there was 80 minutes of cutscenes, though.
Nah, I think that number is a little inflated.
Maybe if you do the whole game, there's more cutscenes, because I didn't really feel like there was that much in this one.
I mean, unless they're literally saying that every time two people are talking
is a cutscene. Yeah,
it's a cutscene.
Oh gosh, we'll talk about it. Did we get to that point in this game? Because a really bad thing happened to me in disc 3, where I have to listen to people on a spaceship talk 2 times. It was awful. Yeah. Okay, so they wanted a mix of real life and fantasy. Fujin and Raijin, 2 of Cypher's friends, were originally supposed to be Turks in Final Fantasy VII. During pre-production, they suggested the game be given a school days feel. That's cute. The original idea was to create 2 timelines. One where a group of naive students would be led by a stoic squall in the present, and another taking place in the past, where an experienced Laguna. Oh, okay, all right. They couldn't quite work out this element in, but some elements remained. To distinguish from Final Fantasy VII, they gave the player actual insight into what Squall was thinking and feeling. And he does feel a lot. And the ballroom scene, CGI, was released on a demo disc for the PS2. In 2000, there was an updated version released for the PC with increased graphics, and in 2019, they released the remastered edition.
Yeah. Lots to unpack here. I guess when you kind of go through it, it's like maybe begging for the inclusion of a tacked on thing into your game breaks it.
Really? I don't think. I think Triple Triad's fine. Like it's there.
No. I mean the ability to transform cards into items breaks it.
Oh yeah.
Because once you can do card mod, you can just like essentially break the game early on by just knowing what to grind. Which I mean, I don't understand the need to include that when there's already so many different ways of breaking the game because it's on a rocky foundation. So maybe I'm complaining about nothing.
Oh, I mean, I think that the development details, like what I'm reading with this whole part where there's like 2 timelines where there's like naive students and Squall, then there's like a past where you get like Laguna. So obviously we got the first timeline. There's a whole secondary underlying story where Laguna was like also the main playable character. They just couldn't quite work it in. I think they were super ambitious with this. They said, you know what, we don't want to do Final Fantasy VII again. What are all the ideas? And they said, cool, how much stuff can we incorporate? They were super ambitious, and then at a certain point they realized they were trying to put 180% into this game, and they had to cut out 80% of the ideas, right? And some things probably were rushed and like not fully worked out, and I think that's kind of the final product of this game.
Yeah. See, and this kind of highlights some of my issues with this game is I keep waiting for like a major overarching theme or idea to kind of come from this, and it just seems like it's lots of mini ideas slapped together and just padded on one another, and then they were just like, look, and there's the next disc, and you go, but nothing happened, and we didn't do anything, and nothing's changed. And you're like, yeah. And you're like, I understand how ambitious that is, but there also needs to be the adult in the room to be like, okay, but what's the subject?
Yeah, but I think the people that once Final Fantasy VII came in, it was such a hit. They were like, Square, you guys are geniuses. You do what you want, right? And the executive said, hey, you guys, you made such an amazing experience. You get kind of, like, do what you want. And then you see that in the next 2 games. Like, Final Fantasy IX is a very safe Final Fantasy experience. Final Fantasy X is a very linear, story-driven, safe experience. So you kind of see that they don't get the same liberties in the next 2 experiences, right? So it's definitely reined in. So this is kind of like the Wild West. This is, somebody hits it big with an indie film, and then they get to do whatever they want, and you see the next movie, and you're like, what like that was so bonkers. What happened?
This is the M. Night Shyamalan of the Final Fantasy universe.
100%. It says you can do what you want, no, be free, and like sometimes you do need to be reined down a little bit from like corporate ties. But like, again, very ambitious experience. It is completely broken. It's not good, but I can appreciate it for its ambition. You know what I mean? But not like it. If that kind of makes sense.
That's fair. That's like, I don't know. Now that I've made the M. Night Shyamalan reference, you're like, this is the like Final Fantasy 7 or Final Fantasy 8, I should say, is like The Happening in video game form. It's just a train wreck of a mess where you just have to sit back and be like, how did this get made?
That's so, a great. I
just can't stop thinking about that. But I'm kind of blowing it out of proportion. It's like has lots of cool and fun ambitious ideas, but it's also like
play remastered, 3 times speed. Give yourself battle power ups. You can power through it. You don't have to work too hard.
Yeah, it's a fine little.
It's a thing. Yeah, it's definitely a thing. All right, so the controls of this ambitious experience. It is a basic RPG. You move around the world. You have random battles. around set areas with predetermined backgrounds, and there's a world map. Okay, cool. You can upgrade your weapons and items. Not so much weapons. You can collect cards from enemies and play playable characters. That's always fun, especially like in areas where there's like distress, people are knocked out, and you can still go up to them and be like, hey man, you want to play cards? They're like, oh, we were just attacked, you have to go to kill this guy. But yeah, I'm always up for a game. To get magic in this game, you have to draw from items, so stronger enemies have better magic, and some bosses even have guardian forces. Oh, that's fun. Guardian forces are the main mechanic in this game. You can equip the summons. You can equip summons to your characters to increase their stats and learn new abilities. Without guardian forces, your characters can only attack. Draw, magic, item, and summons are all equal or equipable functions. Your characters also get unique limit breaks, which is kind of really the only definable distinguishing between the 6 playable characters. They're all the same. And you're encouraged not to level up in this game, since enemies scale with your characters to provide a linear difficulty. So, yeah, that seems fun. Although I've heard like after level 30 or 40 or something like that, as long as you don't like power out your characters at like 99 or whatever it is, it's kind of like moot. You know, it doesn't really matter too much. You get stronger, and like the game doesn't really progress with you, so it's kind of like a weird level cap on that. That's the controls.
Yeah.
What do you want to complain about? That's something I just read.
Everything. Okay, so let me break this down, because I had a really fun experience.
Right.
So Guardian Forces.
Yep.
Like that's how you set up your abilities, like draw your magic, use your magic, use the actual summons. So I knew that a character was going to leave my party, so I took their Guardian Forces off that character and I put it on another character.
Genius. Sounds like a smart plan.
So, like, why not, right? So then that character lost all their abilities, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. I anticipated that they're not going to be able to draw or anything like that. And then when, like, the next time I could put a new character in, I put the Guardian Forces back on that person, and all their magic was gone.
Huh.
So I could no longer boost up their abilities, so I essentially just erased all my work of grinding throughout the entire game, because this game's mechanics are busted and no one tested it.
Who was that? When was that?
That was like it happened in disc 3, but that's just an example of like what actually happens in this awful mess of a freaking game. It's like how can literally and if you like going into your menus and selecting characters or selecting items and putting them on those characters and making sure that they have draw, magic, GF every single time, and there's sometimes where the game will just remove those characters and then you have to put them back on, and guess what? You have to junction everything again, so you have to spend 5 minutes going through and rejunctioning everything. It's like, this is a game of like screen management and status management.
Oh,
like who played this? Like, did anyone
like micromanaging
this game? Like, it's awful.
Yeah, like
like who thought about this? Like, who literally was like, I'm going to play this game from start to finish as we're developing it, and then was like, no, junctioning every 5 minutes is a really fun thing that everybody likes to do constantly, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and there's times where it's like, here's an ambitious cutscene or whatever. So you'll go through a section and then characters will come and go. And guess what? Rejunction everything. That doesn't cut out all the pacing of your scene and make everything like not like, it's such a mess to a point where it's like, I don't even care. Like about the characters, and like at one point it's like I just grab whoever's the lowest level and I toss them in my party. Like I've no connection to these characters because they all play the exact same.
Yes.
And
which is interesting, because in Final Fantasy VII, like I think all the characters in that game are very well developed. They're all different. They're all unique. They all have like like classes of some sort. Final Fantasy VI kind of goes away from that, right? Where it is a bunch of characters and you can interpick, and that was one of your complaints too, right? Is none of the characters mattered, but at least those ones, like, they seemed interesting, or they had different backstories, and you could build them up, right? Like if you wanted Shadow to be your white mage, you could give him the right espers, and you could train him to be a white mage, right?
Yeah. Well, and at least, and even some of the like the old dude with the mustache, like at least like he loses his wife and his kid, and each character has like a unique backstory. Every character in this game has the same backstory.
Yes.
They are literally the same person or character besides their outfit.
The only distinguishing character is what their limit breaks is, right? And your outfits. And they look a little different.
You're 100% right. 100%.
And like when you have a lot of limit breaks, that's how I picked my final party. Like you're like, who are the people you played with the most? I'm like, well, I like Blue Magic, so I went with Quittis because she could just use like laser eyes, and some of the better spells she gets later are useful. And Renoa, I like that her dog attacks everybody, and you're stuck with Squall. So, right.
Yep, that's how it goes.
It's and like I agree with you. It is micromanagement the game, and I just got to the point where my final party at a certain point, they just were always equipped with. Like I don't know if there was a good combination. I just kind of like splattered my GFs across the 3 people, and then just put auto attack for all of them, so they had physical strength, and went about my life.
Yeah, that's basically how this game is. Like,
now there are
and
games.
You gotta think like if you're building game mechanics, like, and people just essentially default to I just auto attack because it's just
but like
bad.
So this is like micromanagement. There's lots of games out there that do micromanagement now, right? Like there's lots of PC games, MMOs, where micromanaging is a big part of it, and people love that. People absolutely love that. There's a game, it's called like Faster Than Light, which essentially is micromanaging a ship to make sure the ship continues to work, and people absolutely adore that. This was one of the first games that ever included that like customization, that micromanagement, and it wasn't done well, but I think again, just appreciate that like if that makes sense, like you can appreciate where it came from. It's not done well, but they have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, I just think it's the wrong thought process.
Yes. There's a reason this doesn't come back.
When you're so focused on like the micro aspects of a game, like yes, I understand that Faster Light was popular, but nobody plays that. It's not a big franchise. It's a flash in the pan. Now it's gone. And it's like, and that's unfortunately what you get when you kind of have. The mechanics, the game loop of the game isn't fun.
Yes.
Where you end up just having it like you might as well just be ordering, like working a part-time job, doing ordering or shipping or sales, and it's the same thing. It's like it's so boring. Why would you make the game based around this?
But I think it comes back to my point earlier of saying this game is ambitious, right? They were super ambitious with the menus, and they went too far. But it's like kind of ambitious. It's the same with the story. Yeah. The story sucks, but like you're like, oh.
I just think whoever wasn't play testing their own game definitely worked at this game, because it's like if you play test this game for 5 minutes, you're like, oh, this is bad, and I'll go back to the drawing board, like take this out, fix this. Like this is not hard things. Like who play tested this and was like, oh yeah, no, stamp seal approval. This is quality. It's like you shipped this.
Yes. So. Yes. It is very flawed. It's a flawed experience.
Yeah.
But people say this is their favorite, and that's the thing. That, like most people that are logical, reasonable people have a similar experience as me and Tyson are having, where we say, "It's okay. Like it's a thing I'll get through, but like it's not great, and I may never play it again." But like there's some people that are like, "Oh, I love this game. This game's great." Now maybe it hit them in a point in their lives where their life was chaos, and they could turn to this game because every single little part. Every single sequence, every single attack stat was micromanageable, and they like that. I don't know, but it's not.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, like, you have to kind of take your bias out and then just, like, look at this game fundamentally. Like, what is the game loop of this game? And you're like, just, it's not fun. Like, Final Fantasy VII, like, the battles are at least sort of engaging. Like, using different magic has implication. Sitting there and grinding out draws, and like, I mean, if you aren't using the broken ×3 speed and everything, it's like, this is not a well thought out system. Like you kind of have to take your own personal bias out and just like looking at this objectively, it's like it doesn't really work or flow correctly, and like even in your big dramatic scenes where it's like, okay, or I understand that some people like this because like, oh, it's got a good romance, and you're like, what's the romance? Squall is the most like disinterested person ever, and in fact feels like people are just like putting themselves on this guy who basically just like wants to do nothing. It's like
yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. At some no. Again, no part is good. So yeah. All right. So that kind of is a controls development. I think probably should have included that in the first area because there was a lot of bitching that needed to happen. And as we were talking about the game, like we were struggling to go through certain parts, and like characters were getting introduced, and we weren't talking about them because like they don't matter, right? They're just there.
Yeah.
You know, they have no input, and like so it was a struggle. We had to get through that part. So in theory, now we can just talk about what happens in disc 2. And I think I got a little end section, and then we're kind of done. And then we just kind of got to power through the next one, right? And good old Final Fantasy VIII. So
yeah,
we've
wrapped our head around how awful this thing is. So.
You made me buy a physical copy of this game. I spent $25 on this. We have to play it.
I said do not.
Yeah, but like
so you buy a digital copy.
Yeah, but like so a digital copy is like 10. So for $15, though, I can have a physical copy that goes on a shelf, and that's worth it. So
that's your you have the shame sitting on your shelf. I can uninstall this from my library and be like, yeah, it's hidden in my past downloads. I got to dig it out.
Yeah, but I don't want that. I've got to display everything. I'm a collector. I'm a Jawa in Star Wars. I want to drive around in a giant ship with all the stuff I have on a desert planet.
And no matter how people are like, this is worse than garbage.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but it's Final Fantasy VIII.
Oh
so
yeah,
I need to have it.
But
I need a physical copy.
I need that part. You need that hyperdrive for a ship that doesn't exist anymore. Because just in case, right? You never know.
Never know.
Stupid Jawas. Anyway, so the story so far. So Squall passed one test in a fire cave, one test on an actual battlefield, graduates, goes on a mission, meets a princess, and attempts to capture the president. The leader of the group, Cypher, betrays us and sides with an evil sorceress. Our little group attempts to assassinate her, runs around the sewers, panics, and attacks her head on. During the battle, Squall takes an icicle to the heart and falls off the float. And now Squall's dead.
Yep, the end.
Hooray! But unfortunately, this game has a second disc, so that's too bad.
Yeah. Somehow it keeps going.
Yep.
But let's just pretend Squall's dead, and now he's just a ghost.
Oh, we'll get into that in the next one. But like, if you have some free time, people, check out squallisdead.com. It's a place. All right. So level note. So we awaken in a dream of Laguna. But our team is actually in a prison. Squall is being tortured by Cypher, while the rest of the team is being beaten by guards. The D District Prison. So Zell dreams of Ward, who is one of the characters that hangs out with Laguna, but is now a janitor, which gives him the needed info to escape the prison. They trick some guards, explore the floors, rescue Squall, split up, and try to escape the prison. Squall teams heads upward and ends up on a catwalk above some giant drills. The other team, with Irvin, plays follow-up after some gun fighting. Both squads end up near the base of the drills, and they must escape via cars.
Yeah, because somehow Squall survived that icicle to the chest. I guess in prison they didn't want him to die, so they gave him good medical treatment and then went on torturing him. So, that makes that
or
water.
Maybe he died and this is just all his neurons in his brain twitching out. That's why the game gets so weird.
Or maybe the writers of the game also didn't care enough to be like, let's not connect the dots. It's fine. I'm just writing the next scene.
In theory,
what's Laguna up to?
Yeah, they could have used magic to heal him. Magic exists, maybe. So most of the game I will poop on, but I kind of like this prison break part. It's kind of interesting. You get to the bottom of the drill and there's this weird tunnel and they're like, oh, you can't go there wait yet. And I was like, oh, I should go back to this prison. I never head back to the prison, but it's kind of interesting maybe.
It reminds me of when you're captured by Shinra in Final Fantasy VII.
So it's not unique at all.
Yeah, but less good.
Yeah, all right, that's a good way of saying it. So now we have two parties. Selfie, it's like, I'm going to go one way, and Squall's like, I'll go the other way. And then I think you can kind of just put whoever you want elsewhere, right? So
that's just Selfie, I think. I don't know. That's what I love. I love trying to do that. It's like these people shouldn't be on the team. It's like I'm gonna grab them, put them on my team.
Okay.
But no, I think this is one of the few times Selfie's actually grayed out and you can't select her.
Yeah, I think because she goes for whatever reason, I don't know. So she apparently was from a different garden and transferred to our garden or something. So she's like, I need to go help my other party. So we're like, okay, bye. So she takes off and you're stuck in a car driving around forever. And then you run out of gas and you leave your car and then you got to find a missile base and you got to get back in the car and then drive really slowly without fuel back to the garden or back to the missile base because that sounds fun.
Yeah. I felt like this part wasn't very impactful until you kind of get to where the next garden is, where you can kind of see the impact of how everything's going. Because it kind of seems like the sorceress is just terrorizing the world right now. And
yeah, so I guess I learned that her plan is to blow up all the gardens because she doesn't like the seed program with missiles. So our team is like, oh, okay, well, we'll go to the missile factory, take our car, and then once we're inside, we get an access key, we gain some permission from a guard, activate some controls, fight some guards, and set the base to self-destruct. We have to reprogram a computer, which may affect something, not really sure, before escaping, and we have to fight Ironclad. I kind of just attacked him, and then parts of him blew up. Sure, why not?
Yep. And, I'm not sure what reprogramming the computer missiles does or does at all.
I think nothing. I think it fails. I think actually you always get a ranking, and it depends. So you don't get money in this game from battling. You get it based on your salary. So the more you walk around based on your ranking, you get more money. Cool. And I think if you do things in the right way, you get like a better ranking. If you do things in the bad way, you end up with bad ranking. So you end up like being like level 1. You only ever get $500, which would happen to me. And then I felt terrible at myself. I love it.
Yeah, you can do you can go into your menus and then go into your seed and then select rank, and then you can take a quiz, and there's about 40 million questions where you can get through and slowly rank your way up that way. But it's limited based on what your current level is, because of course you can't make a simple mechanic like, how do people make money in this game? Well, they have a rank and they get paid by the seed, so they run around and collect money. It's like, yeah, let's complicate this so it's convoluted and really confusing, and the average person would need the actual game mechanics and manuals to figure this stuff out, or it's fine.
All right, great. Well, that's what happened to me because I had no idea what the heck was going on anytime. But afterwards, though, we do see, after this boss, we see that what happened. So we see the missiles, they launch, and we're like, oh no, but we're trapped. And we're like, oh, we're bad, we failed, we're so bad. And then the base explodes. So whoever 3-party you sent there definitely dies.
Oh, they're dead.
Yes.
The bomb shows up on the outer world map, and it's huge. So those people who were standing on the outside of the fence, that metal fence that you can see through.
Yes. Yeah, probably are also dead.
Probably not surviving that.
Yeah, so, and that's literally what I was saying. I was like, it's kind of fun breaking up the action between 2 parties. Okay, so then we're at the Garden Master. Squall's party, we make our way to Blom Gardens. Great, I don't know how we got there. Wait, how did we get there?
I walked, I think.
Well, I guess we have a car, so we drive. All right, so we must prove our allegiance to Sid, fight some guards in each area to get items. And then we have to exploring, we find Zoo, who maybe is the second command. She leads us to Sid, and Sid lets us know that there are many ways to avoid the missile attacks in the basement. So we have to somehow go to the basement. So we head through the depths of the garden and awaken its motors so we can drive around. And then we almost crash into Blom. So our school is actually now a base, and it flies. So we start the motor. We almost crash into the little port city, and we end up crashing into the sea. Oh, no. And we go to talk to Sid, and we find out that he's actually talking to his boss, the Grand Master, who is Grand Master Norg. He's this big orange guy who's sitting in this weird ball in the basement, and apparently he's been in control the whole time.
Yeah, kind of looks like Jabba for some reason.
And, you can...
and it's why is this creepy thing hiding out in the basement that slowly runs everything? Feels like Sid's not on the up and up.
So Sid runs it. We think he's in charge, but actually the guy who funded it was Norg, who's this big guy who hangs out in the basement and controls things, the shadow guy. And you have to fight him, because why not? And you can draw Leviathan from him, and then he dies. But we're also in a school that now, our school floated. So our school is in the ground, but apparently it was also a ship, and now our ship can fly around, but the motor's not working.
Yeah, but we did kill the guy who financed everything, so that's good. Because I'm sure when he was in charge and alive, things that broke got paid to get fixed. But we killed him, so...
So if you don't care about this game whatsoever, and you're like, okay, cool, I stopped the school from being blown up, it flies, sure. You ask questions like, who is Norg? Why do we listen to the big monster in the basement? What does it have? Is there some type of impact overall in the story in the game? And unless you go and secretly explore Norg's little island and meet his people, it doesn't really ever tell you that, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, that's this game in a nutshell. The actual, if you're just following going from plot point to plot point, this makes no sense.
No, yeah, that's a good way of saying it.
At some point, you're just okay, but weren't we just stopping the sorceress? who was attacking all the gardens. So like, okay, what does this have to do with stopping the sorceress? They're like, but we got to kill Nord. It's like, okay, still not connecting the two, but sure, I'll kill this guy.
Yeah,
seems reasonable.
See, Tyson's problem is he's asking too many questions. You don't want to ask questions. That's. I think that's the issue we're having. So now we're floating around in the ocean. Oh no! So our school is floating around in the ocean. Some girl tells us, or some girl is taken by some sorcerer's men. But I think actually another ship shows up at some point, and they're like, "We can protect this girl," and she says, "Okay, bye." The school then, unfortunately, crashes into a fishing village. And we're like, "Oh, we better go explain ourselves and apologize because we can't drive." We talk to the mayor, and he tells us to F off, but we follow him. And we found a Gelem soldier fighting him, and a boss fight. So we fight Ironclad. It's a little bit weaker because it suffered a bunch of damage in the missile base explosion. And afterwards, the 3 missing party members climb out because they hid inside Ironclad this whole time and were safe. So we were reunited in the school. Irving suggests we comfort Selfie. We talk to her and decide that we are depressed and plan a rock concert. Oh, okay, all right. So you can select certain characters to play an instrument. I think I went with the piano, flute, saxophone, and tap.
I
forgot that this was a thing until literally I'm reading through these notes right now.
Yep, because we haven't had enough random garbage slapped in this game.
That's all this is, just randomness. Like, there's a certain way, and like, Renoa takes us to this concert, and there's like a dirty magazine, because like we want to get horny and have sex, but apparently we just end up in a fight, because I didn't put the right sequence, and the music isn't well enough, versus they'll actually have like a fun conversation if you do things properly.
This is the love story, everybody, that keeps, oh, this is such a good romantic game. Yeah, this half-assed date where you randomly select instruments that everybody magically can play. Like, I think I went with like an Irish jig or something, and it's just like, it's so awful. Like, why is this in the game? What does this have? What? I thought the sorceress was terrorizing the world. We had to assassinate her, remember?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're sad, and we need to have a little date, and Irving's a perv, and everybody plays musical instruments.
All right, well, after this awesome event, we get access to the bridge, and we can travel around the world. So we finally figured out how to get the engine working. So now we have a flying school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so the school is now our ship that we can travel across the continents.
When you think of other schools, like, this is probably the best school in all of media because it flies, right?
I mean, I don't see Hogwarts teleporting and flying around.
Hogwarts is a dumb old castle. Magic lives. These guys do magic, and their school drives around, so pretty cool.
Yep. And there's a guy named Nord in the basement that's not dead.
Sure, why not? So we're in Fisherman's Horizon. So this area, let's see what my note says here. This area almost sums up the entire game. It's a cool area. It's an interesting backstory about this like no technology fishing story. You fight one boss, you run around and talk to some people in a random sequence for no reason. Have all your characters play musical instruments, and finally watch a love story. It's so dumb. I really hate this game. All right, cool.
Yep. That sums up quite nicely.
All right, so now we can travel around the world, and we're like, oh, we can go back and see all these places. We can't really go anywhere new, but we can go to all the old places. Great. And you notice there's another flying school, because why not? The bad guys also have a flying school right near Blom. You're like, oh, so you head into Blom, you enter the town, you search for the captain, you talk to the guards at the hotel, the train guards, Zell's mom, and a dog before fighting Rain inside the hotel. All right.
Yes. The important sequence of Blem, it's now like occupied by these people, and it's like you only residents are in, and I was like, I'm a resident, and it's essentially you blink and you miss it, and this I don't understand again. Yeah. What this has to do with the sorceress.
And like to find it, we have to find he was fishing. We have to get a dog to like find the fish smell, and then
and those 2 kids that were part of Zypher's like posse are now
the bad guys.
So
we just fought Rajin inside the hotel, and then he runs outside. Now it's Fujin and Rajin, and they're outside, and Fujin has a bunch of strong magic spells, and if you draw you get a new GF, which is always kind of fun, I suppose. And then you take them out. Sure, why not, right?
Yeah, then you have a nice conversation with them.
Yeah, so I said essentially, I like that I found a GF. So that's always exciting when you go to draw something and you're like, what is Alexander? And you get it and you're like, oh, GF, great. But other than that, it's just more pointless, random NPC interactions and a boss fight.
And it includes two such unique characters as Rajin as the strong dumb guy, and Fujin, who's like the sassy jerk.
You are gonna hate this game. Like if you're not into it at this. Oh no, I actually might get better in this next part. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah, that's it. And then we're like, oh, now that we stopped them, I guess we'll go see what Selfie's Garden's up to. Right? That seems fun.
Yep.
All right. Yep. Back aboard our ship, Selfie suggests that we head to her garden to check to make sure everyone is okay. We find out that Trabia Garden didn't move and was bombed. Oh no, we meet some of the survivors, which one of them is Selfie's best friend, so that's pretty exciting, before we get a big lore dump. It turns out, ready for this, spoilers, all of the seeds in our party, Squall, Quintus, Selfie, Zell, Irvin, and Cypher, grew up at the exact same orphanage when they were younger, and as a result of their parents dying in a sorceress war. They were cared for by someone named Matron Adia. Yes, the evil sorceress herself. Zell was adopted by his parents, while the rest of the children went on to join the Seed program. They were trained and modified to have their bodies adopt GFs into them, which affected their memories. After this truth bomb, we decide to go take down Adia.
Yep, that's things. Ugh, I hate this. I absolutely.
You weren't into that?
No, I thought that this was so dumb, and even to a point where, like, okay, so everybody, like, the reason they don't remember anything is because they've adopted GFs.
Yeah.
But even characters that didn't adopt GFs have their memory messed with.
Yeah.
No one, and Irving somehow remembers all these things and was like, "Yeah, I didn't say anything, guys," and it's like, okay.
So I think Irvin they don't use GFs as much as at his garden. So they rely more on other skills. So he retained more of his memories. And he just didn't say anything to this point.
Yeah, because that's how real characters act, is like, hey, old friends, how are you guys? And they're like, I'm just going to awkwardly not say anything and just pretend like I've never met you guys. Like, you don't realize that they don't have memories. So you would, like, this, as a writer, this does not make any bloody sense. No one, like, if you handed this into your teacher would be like, what's wrong with you? Like, these characters, like, this does not make logical sense. Take it back, rewrite it. Did you not proofread your work? And it's just like, this was, this opened so many more plot holes.
Yes.
But also, like, what a random convenience that all these characters randomly get along with each other. And Quintus, where the heck her name is, was our teacher, and it's like now is part of our team, and is now we're part of our orphanage. And you're like, well, who else? We don't know any other characters, so let's make somebody else my, like, the best friend from the past. And you're like, and oh, you, by the way, Squall, your sister was also here too. And you're like, oh yeah, I should go talk to her. And it's like, this is so dumb. This is such a messy, like, whoever did this was like, I feel like there was multiple people in the writer's room, and somebody quit, got fired because of incompetence, and the next person showed up and was like, oh, I'm just going to rewrite this in here and kind of give myself a fresh start on page 98. And it's like, why would you do this? This is so bad. Don't include everybody's magically from the same orphanage or same thing from the past. That is such lazy, cliched writing. It's bad. Don't do that.
So I like the opposite. This was a weird swerve, and I was like, all right, I'm in. This is, I'm curious to see. I'm already on the path, going down. It's taking a weird, sharp turn. I'm just going to see it through, because I'm like, it gets kooky bananas, and I'm like, sure, why not? Like, it's better than the boringness I was getting before. At least this part, I'm like, this is something I haven't seen before. A bunch of orphans that have amnesia that grow up together, have magic powers. Sure, where are we going with this? So I kind of took more of a glimmered-eyed, optimistic approach. I'm like, I mean, it can't get worse than it was before, so let's see what happens.
Clearly it can, because this is so hackneyed. Like, this is so unoriginal that everybody just randomly.
Where else do you see a flying school? That's original.
That, who cares? Like, that's just taking, hey, a high wind, but we didn't actually like lay out what a high wind is. But Sid's here, so obviously we just got to make a magic, like a thing, like
Flying ship, yeah.
flying ship that gets you around. It has Sid. Why not the school? Sounds good. Let's just print it. It's like, why not have like Sid have a high wind, or this is like this garden has it's like we specialize in air infantry, and this is like our top of line ship. And like one of the other seeds, they are focused on more like submarine stuff, and
yeah, but they already did
more
those.
like tank stuff. And
they did that in Final Fantasy VII. They had ships, and they had that. So they said, but you know what they don't have is flying schools. So let's do a flying school. So they were just being original. So this actually is very original.
No,
All right.
no, this is bad.
All right. So now that we've seen this amazing story, and we're like, man, I'm so excited to get a conclusion to this epic tale. What's the last part? It's called Clash of the Gardens. That sounds exciting. So we drive our school until we see the other school driving around. We rally the troops and we get ready for a final battle. Zell and Irving lose Renoa when she falls off a cliff. And rather than just save her, they go find Squall, who is prepping to crash the school into the other school. And he gets into a fight with a mech. And then he has to play a punching minigame, which I failed multiple times. And then we save her. So you just don't save a girl. You got to go like do some other stuff first. And as the schools land and prepare for battle, we land near the back of the school, head inside, make a party, and we get to explore some hallways to collect card keys to advance.
Because you know that love story between the Squall and Renoa.
Yeah.
About how like this girl's in danger, literally holding on for dear life. You know what? I'm gonna run around a little bit.
Well, you gotta.
And even her friends supposedly are like, you know what? I understand you're hanging off on that side of the cliff for dear life, but I'm going to go tell Squall what's up.
Yeah.
Like, I got to go run this past your boyfriend because you're not actually important. You're not a character. I got to go see what Squall's up to so he can come save you. It's like, this is terrible. This is awful. Save Renoa. What the hell is wrong with you, Zell and Irvine? Like, or who are the people you bring up? Like, it's so bad.
And then Zell was like, "Oh man, can I have your ring, Cloud? Your family ring? So I want to give it to Renoa."
That's been mentioned through the whole part of the game. Yeah. Don't you remember that all those times where we've mentioned your ring? Yeah. Not this random dialogue box that has. Ugh. Anyways,
it's a pretty good game. No, I'll be honest, it's pretty good. So now we've got all these card keys. We can fight Cerberus. He's a boss, and I think when you kill him, he joins your party. So that's pretty exciting. And then you head to the Mistress's head chambers. We fight Cypher, and I don't think anything special happens. Although I saw somewhere where like Odin shows up. If you have like the Odin summon in your party, and he like kills Odin, but then this like ninja shows up, and that's like he replaces Odin or something. I don't know what did this happen to you, or did you just fight him?
I just fought him, and it was dumb, like every other dumb battle in this dumb game.
Yeah, and then I think for some reason he pops up and takes Renoa and runs away with her, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, Renoa's like, I'm just gonna walk around for a bit now that the bad guys, and he instantly jumps up and runs after her and grabs her, and I was like, yeah, whatever. So we have to go fight Adia, who's obviously the end boss of this game. So let's fight her at the end of disc 2 of a 4-disc game, because that sounds fun. So Adia, we fight her. She has one noteworthy spell to draw out of, which I think is Alexander. So you could get Alexander and Cerberus here. So that's a lot of GFs. That's pretty exciting. And then after the fights, Renoa acts weird and passes out. End of disc 2.
Yeah. And we just beat the big bads of the game. The whole conflict of the game has been resolved. Cypher, our douchey rival, has now been defeated, and we whooped his ass, and then we fought Adia, and we whooped her ass, and you know what? Like, I mean, at this point, all the conflict has been resolved, because the only conflict has been the sorceress running around terrorizing the countryside, because we were just mercenaries. That's all our job was, and then we ran across the sorceress that was apparently evil. So, like, I mean, conflict resolved, everybody, right?
I guess. I mean, I don't even understand what the conflict of this game is.
There is none. There literally is none.
Like, there was politics at some point, right? So the politics happened, and they were like, "Oh man, can't better have a war because we have a president and we're rebels." But like, what was bad about what's the president in charge of?
Nothing.
Okay.
In fact, when he gets murdered, the crowd cheers.
So there's
and keeps cheering and doesn't like run or have mass hysteria. They just stand there like it's hoot and hollering, like it's the ball drop of New York or in New York City on New Year's. Like it's
I think
this game is a hodgepodge of events.
I don't know if I talk about this, but this world just kind of sucks. Like, there's like a bottom continent that's like was a war zone, so there's nothing there. Everyone's dead. There's one continent that's like mysterious and nothing's on. That's also dead. Then there's like a little part where there's like the Norg people that apparently have lots of money and another garden. Okay, there's our little island that has our garden. There's a fishing village, and then there's a town where there's like a place where a president works, but the rebels also work out of the same town. And then there's like a place where it has like a satellite dish, and that's it, right?
There's some towns with train tracks.
Yeah, but like there's like 3 towns connected by train tracks, and apparently the president oversees that continent potentially. So that's it. So there's like one habitable world, and there's 2 destroyed worlds, and there's like the rich people island. And
if even if you look at just just if you got some 5 seconds, just Google the Final Fantasy VIII continent map, and just look at what we're working with here. It's just literally a hodgepodge of. It looked like somebody just like randomly threw some paint on there, and they were like, done. Now that's the continent, and this is how it works. And you're like, every other Final Fantasy game, even the bad ones, like even like Mystic Quest, everybody likes to dump on that game. Like, look at Mystic Quest's map, and it is like light years ahead of this game, which is apparently like, oh, so cutting edge and so ambitious. They're like, no, this was a game that like all the talent like and all the overarching people that were like seeing everything, they were off working on a different project. These were all the B-leaguers and people, everybody trying everything for the first time, but they didn't have a senior voice to be like, no, don't do that. Like, everything, we should organize it like this. The map should actually, like, we should have a major continent, and if we want to have mysterious other continents, they should be obvious. It's like, this game has zero unifying anything to it. It's not like it's almost as if it's all just a bunch of random things that they just had to, oh, well, we need another continent because we're writing in a hidden village. Let's write in this hidden village. Okay, we'll add another continent. Where are we going to put on the map? Doesn't matter. Nothing matters in this game. Just slap an island there. Okay, well, later on down the story, oh, well, we need this. Slap on another island on the map. People just have to go there. And you're like, this is the laziest, hackneyed job of video game development that I've, like, it's painful to me. This is painful. There's times where I, like, I can usually grind through a game really easily. I struggle with this game. Like, there's times where I just, like, I have to just put the game down, just, like, I need to go get, like, a glass of water or something, because I just need to walk away from this. It is painful to me. Like, there's no interesting characters. There's nothing interesting happening in this world. None of these, like, there's no stakes. I'm not invested in any of the characters. Nobody's in danger. Main character got stabbed through the chest. He's fine. Bunch of people got blown up. They're fine. And one of our main, like, love interest is hanging off the side of a cliff. And we're like, cool, I got a side quest and a button mashing combination to do. And they're like, why are we doing this? Why does anything matter? It's like, it just makes me like, why am I playing this game? And it's like, oh, this is so rough.
I like to imagine that Tyson played this game in the dark alone, and he's just sitting there with his head in his hands half the time, being like, why am I doing this to myself? Me, on the other hand, I played every morning when I ride my bike, and I'm like having fun, and I'm listening to like Britney Spears music, and I'm just like having this big good time, because I'm having a great time. I'm excited to see what these orphans, where they go. Is Renoa okay? She passed out. Hopefully she's okay.
She's fine. Man. They're all fine. Nothing matters. Everybody's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I do enjoy Tyson's nihilistic approach to this game. But let's finally... I have a cultural significance, apparently. Storytelling. And then I think I just kind of halfway through give up because I just don't care. And then we move on to the next game.
You're like everybody else that worked on this game. They just gave up because they didn't care.
Like, literally, I'm going to read through this, and you're like, I just gave up halfway through writing this. I'm just like, okay, so big...
The end.
So storytelling. So a big part of Final Fantasy is the storytelling. How do they make us care about the world, the characters, or even the villains? Now that we are aware of the story of this game, let's see how this game compares to other basic thematical elements that it presents, as well as how it compares to one of the greatest Final Fantasy narratives of all time, Final Fantasy VII. Big disclaimer. After reading through the development details of this game, I feel like we got an incomplete narrative. There was meant to be a greater story told through 2 time periods. However, we didn't get but this is our final product. So rather than run out of time and we they think they ran out of time, are way too ambitious. We were just left with this game and kind of have to live with it. All right. So I kind of just gave up as I was writing the first paragraph. So that's awesome. So Final Fantasy VII dealt with the themes of loss, identity, and love. Listen to our Final Fantasy VII retrospective to hear us discuss a good game. Final Fantasy VIII, however, has the themes of destiny/fate, which can make for an interesting story, but usually these stories leave a little bit to the imagination. I also feel like they dealt with the theme of growing up, taking on more responsibility, and patience. Since you need to have a lot of patience to draw 100 of any magical spells. I had a point here, but I kind of lost interest, and just there's no content here, so I kind of just lost anything. So I'll set up a battle royale for the next episode between Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII. I've got some fun categories like which game has the best flying school. You'll have to wait to find out which one we think it is. And hopefully Final Fantasy VIII doesn't hate because I make a bunch of fake categories and give it a win. And then Tyson has to say, I guess, by his metrics, it is the best game. So there you go.
I look forward to that too, because I will argue that, like, even if Final Fantasy VIII has a flying school, it's like, I prefer no flying school, so now let's give this to Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, no, but that's not, the category is
it.
Best flying school in a video game.
Yes, but since it doesn't have one, I prefer that, so I'm going to go with Final Fantasy VII.
All right, well,
give that the point.
We'll have to bring an independent judge, I guess, to bias the results in my favor. So
I'm just going to give everything not to Final Fantasy VIII, because this game, I love your ambition of, like, hey, you know, it has like fate and destiny, and those are the themes. And you're like, no, the theme is these people didn't have an idea, and they were just like. They came in 1 week and they were like, put 10 ideas in this hat. And I was like, okay. Yeah. And they went around the room. There was like 6 people and they all wrote 10 random ideas in a hat. And then that week they would take out like 5 of those ideas and then slap them up. And they're like, hey, this is the next sequence of the game that we're going to make.
I mean, I think the real legacy of this game is it's a technical masterpiece, right? Where there's lots of times where you're playing, there's a cutscene in the background and your character is interacting and can run around with an actual like FMV video. And we've never seen that before, right? It's way advanced for its time. It really helped kind of push the technology of video games, of kind of JRPGs, of what the PlayStation could do, right? And everything else was put on the back burner, right? So it was such a technical wonder. And I think if you can look past everything else, like Tyson's kind of been complaining about, right? It is a technical wonder, and it is the fact it was on a PlayStation 1, like PlayStation 2 games often couldn't do this, right? And I think we're seeing a result of what if you pushed all of like, it's like anything. It's like a resource management, right? Like if you put 75% into the technical aspects, the rest of your game only gets 25% of the time. And I think that's what we saw, and that's kind of the legacy of this game, right? And
so you're saying that they were so busy asking if they could that they never spent any time asking if they should.
100%. I mean, it is just one of those things where you look at Final Fantasy 7 and 8 were on the exact same consoles. One looks a generation ahead, right?
But runs like a potato.
Oh, no. Like it just there's no content there. It's just like, it's kind of almost a technical showcase, right?
Yeah, but it's like
they just didn't put any of the
loading screens the game. Like,
well, I mean, yeah,
everything you just like we're playing a modern hardware, and I'm still amazed at how, like, man, like even with 3 times speed, like these are some slow like load and transitions, and I understand they have to do that because you're right, it's super ambitious. Where like sometimes you're coming in on these scenes and just even the backgrounds and pre-rendered everything is like, it looks so awesome, like. The technical aspects, like this game is programmed on such a high like level, and like engine is running super efficient, but it's just like the design kind of is lacking. So it's like
100%. I mean, it's like eating
like the foundational technical like aspects of the game is good, but it's just like just because it's technically correct doesn't mean it's correct.
I mean, it's like having a fine, like, you know, a 5-star chef cook you this like bratwurst and like all the sides that accompany it on a paper plate, right? The paper plate is Final Fantasy VII's technicalness, but the meat and potatoes, the meal's amazing. Whereas this is like fine china that's been hand painted, you know, and like this plate's worth $1,000, but it's just like an Oscar Mayer wiener on it with some Kraft dinner. Like, the content sucks compared to the other game.
You're being generous. I would say a dog might have lost rest is breakfast on that plate, but
Well, you know what I mean. Like it's just
because
bare.
it's just regurgitated ideas.
Yeah, it's just a bare bones. It's okay. That's what you did. But you know that's what I mean. Like, but like the plate increase is different.
Yes.
Just the content of the plate sucks. If that makes
100%,
sense.
and that wasn't what they were focused on. Like even in the development details, they were very much more like clearly we're being ambitious for ambitious sake. Because I mean,
2 stories told through
to
time, and they're like, oh, cool.
As you need to think about like just the technical skills on the team. I know I was kind of dumping on everybody that worked on this game as an idiot. Like, no, obviously, like the game's I don't like the content, and I don't like the direction of where this game could go. And I feel like had there been like a really strong creative direction, this game could have been so amazing. But it's just because it has like a lacking universal voice or senior voice just kind of in that room. Like, imagine in this game if like Shigeru Miyamoto was there, like a guy that was just so basically like, this needs to be fun at all aspects of the game, and then we'll kind of sort out the rest. And it's like, but that's not what their ambitious was. That's not what their goals kind of were for this project. It was kind of more like every so often you need to kind of just try to run before you can walk, just so you can kind of find those hurdles and try to work through them. Because look at Final Fantasy IX. Obviously, like the issues that they had or that they solved, because that's also came on the PlayStation 1. Yeah. It's like just for the, like compare Final Fantasy 7 to 9. It's like these like that. This is a console generation skip in one game, but there has to be a stepping stone, and that was Final Fantasy VIII. So like
it'd be like if Majora's Mask, like the advancements from Ocarina of Time to Majora's Mask from a technical aspect, but if Majora's Mask had like a terrible story that was like incomprehensible almost, right? But you're like, kind of see what they're doing, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's sometimes it's just like anything. It when it comes to, I look at compare it to Halo. The end, like Halo 2 was a big step forward, but story wise and like it was kind of like, okay, what was this? Like it was kind of like, okay, we just ran through some levels, and then eventually we had a boss fight at the end, and we got to continue to fight in the next one. And you're like, I remember even finishing it and be like, oh, that sucked. Like I wanted an ending. I didn't want this half-assed thing. But they needed to take the technology a step forward, and so the story fell as a lower priority, and that happens. But for me, it's just like replaying these things. It's frustrating because I want this game to be. I want it to be like on the same level and story and content as everything else. But
but I think if this did shine, let's say, it was technically that much better and the story was great, I think people would look back at Final Fantasy VII as not as great as it was. So this is one of those things where the legacy of this game also potentially be, it made Final Fantasy VII more indentured to a generation of gamers, right? Because I mean, if Squall comes out and he's equally as cool, and he's like this heroic, and you fall in love with Squall, you would have debates of Squall versus Cloud. Versus now, it's a no-brainer, right? Squall's a better video game character, easily, right? But if you kind of pushed it forward, so like I know you want that push forward, but think of the legacy and all the tarnish that would put on the other parts of the franchise if it was that much greater, right? So it's almost one of those things. It's kind of good that it sucks because
you need a turd in the bunch so you can be like, look, the rest of these don't taste as bad as that one does.
Yeah, exactly, right. So it's take it with kind of a grain of salt, right? But that is, I think, kind of the end of this episode. We're back in a month's time where we get to wrap up this fun game, and then maybe move on to greener pastures. So
fun in quotation marks.
Yeah, it's a thing. I mean, it doesn't get better. Let's put it that way. Like,
I know. I'm not looking forward to it. As I've kept playing it, like I said, I've ran across a few fun system issues that are plaguing my experience and making me just want to just burn this game. But I'm getting through it, and I'm looking forward to Final Fantasy IX.
Well, at least it, like,
greener pastures.
At least the end boss of the game, like, no spoilers or anything, but just doesn't throw random party members into the battle every time you start it up, so you actually never you don't know who you're supposed to fully equip because they just pick 3 random guys and you go.
Oh, well, I'm glad that they decided to break their even broken garbage system.
Yep. So there you go. Cool. So awesome. So that wraps up this bad boy. We'll see you guys, I guess, 2 weeks for a numbered show. I think we're back. Metroid Fusion is the schedule, kind of what we're doing, and then back and wrap this up in a month. So good stuff.
Good bad. We're gonna get through this.
All right, sounds good. All right, so we say goodbye and see you guys then.
See you.